is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined as always by Derek Young from K-State Online, Cole Manbeck, former beat writer for the Manhattan Mercury. And today we preview the most anticipated matchup of the college football bowl season, perhaps the college football season. It is the Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando with an edible Pop-Tart mascot on the line. K-State and NC State will duke it out. And the K-State roster is going to look quite a bit different. We will cover that ad nauseum here on the show today, which of course is brought to you by our friends at Holiday Distillery. I'm sure they're huge Pop-Tart fans, but pair with your Pop-Tarts some 360 vodka or some Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon. That seems like it would go well with like perhaps a s'more Pop-Tart, maybe my favorite, the brown sugar cinnamon. And if you're going more like the frosted strawberry route, that seems to match up well with some 360 vodka. So make it happen. Get your bowl party ready with our friends from Holiday Distillery, who are great K-State folks who support the pod. So go show them some love, people. Please go show them some love. All right. A lot has happened since the last time K-State played a football game. I was thinking about this and doing the outline and getting ready for this show. Like, damn, man. Like, that was the Iowa State game feels like it was 8 months ago. And honestly, thank God, because that was a disastrous performance, obviously, by the defense. But ton has happened. Colin Klein left. Will Howard is in the portal, potentially headed to USC. At least as we record this, that has not. I have not seen that become officially official. But 15 guys in the transfer portal. There is going to be a lot that looks different about this team. But the thing that we know will be the headline of the game is the fact that the Avery Johnson era begins in earnest with this one, as he will be K-State's starting quarterback and damn near the only quarterback that K-State will have. And DY, I think that certainly is where we have to start when you think about this game. The fact that Avery Johnson will get a chance to go out there with a new offensive coordinator in Connor Riley. But Avery Johnson will hopefully get a chance to be totally unchained. No more training wheels like when he was out there most of the time during the regular season. We'll get to see him cut it loose.
Yeah, you're going to, for the first time, be introduced to what a full game plan will look that is exclusively tailored to Avery Johnson, and see him with all parts of the offense in terms of the playbook and what they can deploy, but doing it under a different play caller and perhaps doing it with different weapons. You'll still have DJ Giddens, but you'll probably see Joe Jackson as that next running back, who's a true freshman that hasn't really played almost at all this year. I think he got in one game maybe. And then receivers, you're not going to have Phillip Brooks, but everybody else, unless I'm glossing over something, should be in the fold. You'll probably see Seth Porter more in the slot now because Phillip Brooks isn't there. Maybe you see a little bit more Jaden Jackson. Keegan Johnson will obviously be there. Does Trey Spivey start to work himself in? Obviously, Jace Brown will as well. So, yeah, I think it starts and ends there. And it'll be the first test for Avery Johnson as a starting quarterback. He does have one start already in his career, but he came as a wide receiver against, I believe, TCU, which will be an interesting trivia question for later down the line when we review his career and what unfolded. But I think this is pretty important, not only for Avery Johnson to gather this experience, and he's going to face a challenging NC State defense, but it'll be a good experience for Connor Riley too, who just might be eventually the permanent offensive coordinator, even though they're giving him the interim tag, at least temporarily. But they also, in a way, have to prove to Avery Johnson that he's in good hands as well. And I think that's pretty critical.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Connor Riley thing's probably the most fascinating part. Look, I'm very excited to watch the young guys play in this bowl game. Gives me more excitement than I've had in a long time to see Avery Johnson, Joe Jackson, potentially Trey Spivey, Jace Brown, Garrett Oakley, guys that we have seen a decent amount this year as well, and then some guys on the defensive side of the football. But, when it comes to the offense and Avery Johnson, I want to see what this system looks like with Connor Riley leading it and what the route trees and the passing game potentially looks like. I have no doubt that, he'll be able to call a solid run game. He's been a run game coordinator in his career and at Kansas State, is in charge of a lot of those blocking assignments in the running game as well as in pass pro. But I want to see what that passing game does look like with Riley. And to your point, DY, I think it's going to be critical, to show Avery Johnson and these other guys in the system that they're going to be balanced, that they're going to throw the ball a decent amount, and that they're going to be explosive still and be creative. So, I just don't know what a Connor Riley offensive system looks like. This is his first time calling plays in his career, we believe. And so that's going to be fascinating to me to see how they do, and if he is then named, which we do expect to be the permanent offensive coordinator after the bowl game, and then Kansas State goes out and gets its quarterback coach. So really looking forward to it, and looking forward what Avery Johnson does to what John just said with the training wheels kind of let go, and letting him operate with the full playbook, which we know he's capable of doing.
Yeah, and this will kind of merge headline 1 and headline 2. Headline 1 is Avery Johnson era begins. Headline 2, Connor Riley taking over. We expect probably is the permanent offensive coordinator here. But yeah, I mean, the game plan, I would hope, involves him throwing the ball considerably, because, it seemed like there was some grumbling perhaps behind the scenes about the way Avery Johnson was used throughout the year. It started at Mizzou with the packages where he was coming in on second and long just to run the ball. Later on in the year, Colin was very hesitant to have him throw the ball, for instance, like at Texas when he got some snaps early in that game. It just seemed like he was never fully confident in letting him be able to just cut it loose and throw the ball downfield. And now, I mean, look, I hesitate to even bring this up because it's like a disaster scenario. We don't want to think about it, but I mean, he could still leave after the bowl game if there are feelings that are not totally positive about what is happening here. So it just feels like the stakes are actually, we think about bowl games and stakes are low and what does it really matter? And hey, it'll just be fun to see these guys go out and play. And yeah, if Colin Klein were still here as the offensive coordinator, I would agree with that. But it does feel to me like the stakes are actually kind of high here, because you want to make sure that you invoke enough confidence in Avery Johnson and his camp that Connor Riley can be the dude to lead you. Now, I guess the other thing is you could say, well, we didn't like how the offense looked and go make a change at offensive coordinator, but that just seems so out of Chris Kleiman's nature to do that at this point that I mean, it would take, I would think, a disastrous performance there. And then you're going to be a little bit more limited in your options because you've waited so long to go actually make a move here. And I feel like I can't remember if it's been Patreon or here on the actual show. We discussed it quite a bit, but you painted yourself kind of into a corner with all of that. So I hope that it's something that looks more like what Avery Johnson would like it to look like, which is him getting an actual chance to showcase his arm as opposed to just the legs.
Yeah, I don't know that Avery Johnson necessarily has anything to prove in this game, as we kind of know what he is from a skill set standpoint. And your first start being against NC State is pretty challenging. That's one of the better defenses in the country year in and year out. I don't think anything about his particular performance is going to kind of deflate the expectations or the hype at all. Just because I think everyone understands the circumstances and the situation. I think they're still going to have a lot of excitement about him, even if there isn't a ton of success in that game. But if there wasn't a ton of success, then you will have questions, about the offense's direction, who's in charge of it and all of that. And at the end of the day, I think the most important thing to walk away from in terms of this bowl game is to prove to Avery Johnson, like I said, that he is in good hands. I think there is was it five days after the bowl game or the transfer portal remains open. That's obviously a doomsday scenario. And I think Avery Johnson's here for at least one more season. So I'm not even paranoid about it or worried about it, but you do have to prove to him that you're guiding him in the direction that he wants to go in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Look, I don't think Avery Johnson's going to go anywhere. At this point, I don't think any of you guys are saying that. There would be a slim possibility. I think the biggest threats would have probably been the other two schools that finish in his top three in Oregon and Washington, and they both filled their quarterback spots already this offseason with
I would add Oregon went with two guys. They have two.
Yeah. Isn't that shocking, man? They got Dante Moore. So Dante Moore just wants to sit for a year?
He's content with that. Some guys are. He knows and that'll be his show in a year. Maybe he felt like he was overwhelmed in his first year. But some guys really, really want to play, like Malachi Nelson. I think his list of schools kind of shows you what happened at USC, where he probably isn't a guy that lived up to the hype, but also probably a guy looking for a starting spot. I think that's what that was indicative of. And I think Avery Johnson really wants to start. He really wants, at least we know he wants to play. He wanted to play last year. This past season, quite a bit, and obviously he did. And he'll be a sophomore. He didn't redshirt.
Yeah, when you look at all the schools that recruited him the hardest, Notre Dame too, they have Riley Leonard, Florida State, they're fighting for Cam Ward right now, and then Oregon, Washington got Will Rogers from Mississippi State. So, there's not, by the time December 28th rolls around, there's not going to be, most teams will have filled their quarterback spots by then. And look, we don't expect anything to happen anyways. We think Avery Johnson is staying for next season, but just wanted to outline some other reasons why that could be the case. So, yeah, but Avery Johnson does not want to be used strictly as a running quarterback. He wants to throw the football. He wants to. I mean, when we had him on the pod earlier this year for the player interview brought to you by Riverbank Brewing in Council Grove, that he talked about the negative connotation with him at the time was that he couldn't throw the football, and it did seem to annoy him. So I think he wants to chuck it around a decent amount, and with his build, until he gets a little bit bigger and stronger, which he will this offseason, I don't think. You can afford to be running him all that much. And so, I'm interested to see the running game here because I don't think they have him run the ball too many times, especially with the quarterback situation and potentially only having Jacob Knuth behind him, which, by the way, did we get confirmation, DY, that Knuth is good to go for the bowl game?
Chris Klein just says it sounds good.
Well, he basically, I was listening to a press conference last night before we recorded this, and he just kind of like insinuated it. I mean, he basically just threw it out there like, yeah, it's going to happen. I was just sort of like, okay, is that for sure?
It wasn't like it is locked in, but it was like, it will be fine. Like it isn't fine yet. Almost.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, the NCAA doesn't have any power over anything these days, right? So just play them anyways and see what they're going to do. So, yeah. But no, I mean, I think I would be surprised if Avery Johnson, like on design quarterback runs, if he had more than maybe 5 to 7 design QB runs and then maybe a couple scrambles. But I do not want to see them lining him up and trying to run him up the middle much on a bunch of QB design runs. I want to see him throw the football.
Well, that is some of the concern to me. And look, I will just say this up front. Like Connor Riley might be my favorite coach as far as like just a dude that I really like on K-State staff. I love him for a number of different reasons. He's clearly done a really good job as an offensive line coach, and I think he's a guy that probably does have options, and maybe the offensive coordinator position here is a bit of a nod to that. Like, hey, you've been loyal here and stuck around with some other options. We're going to give you this opportunity. But with a guy who's been this deep into his career without being an offensive coordinator, I think there are concerns that come along with that. With the fact that he is an offensive line coach, I think there are concerns that come along with that. And one of those would be, like, you would think of him being a guy that would lean too heavily into the run. Chris Kleiman's case that he made at the press conference, and I think that we've heard, privately is the case that he's made here, is like, look, we've had a lot of success on offense the last 3 seasons. Let's not change anything. Let's keep the continuity. Connor Riley knows the system. We'll roll with that. I got to be honest, like I don't totally love that, but I guess I can see where the logic is there. I just let's hope that that's what happens, and that it's not going to be too run heavy, because I'll just be honest. Like, again, love the guy, would love to see him succeed. I would love it. I would absolutely love it. Andy Reid might be the best guy doing it, calling plays right now. He's an offensive line dude. It's not impossible, but I certainly have concerns. I'll just put it that way. I have concerns about it.
Is he the best guy doing it anymore, Andy Reid?
Who's better at calling plays out there right now than Andy Reid?
Well, I don't know. That Chiefs offense doesn't look too good.
Well, when he has capable receivers, he probably is.
No, I get it. I'm just.
I mean, Shanahan would probably be a guy that.
Yeah,
you know what? Make Kyle Shanahan use Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore as wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, and see what the hell happens.
Get you guys on a tangent.
Well,
I was just taking the subtle jab that I could, because as a Packers fan, we do have a W.
Kyle Shanahan is dealing with.
Why don't you go tackle MVS again, DY? Why don't you go just tackle MVS at the 3-yard line again?
I have no problem tackling him at the 3-yard line because he's wearing red instead of green anymore. So that's
okay. Well, Kyle Shanahan does have to deal with Brock Purdy, and has made him capable quarterback. So,
Brock Purdy, bro.
Yeah, that's right. Anyways, I don't know how we got started on that.
Okay, DY, your thoughts on Connor Riley?
Like you, I can see the logic of why they're doing this, or why Chris Kleiman is comfortable going this route. I'm not going to call it somebody a bad hire when we don't know what they will look like as an offensive coordinator, because they haven't been an offensive coordinator, I mean, he could go out and be really good. Who knows? The stereotypes of an offensive line coach make it, like I say, a less sexy hire. I can see why they're doing it and have no choice right now than to be supportive of it and hope it works out.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and then the QB coach will be very interesting to me as well. And, I don't know. We'll see where K-State goes on that front, too. I just don't love it because, a trial run for a bowl game isn't necessarily the best audition to me as something to, use as a gauge. I know they did it with Colin Klein, and it obviously worked out. I think it was, but I mean, Colin had already been a coordinator. He was a coordinator at Northern Iowa. He was a co-coordinator at K-State in 2018, although that offense wasn't very good by any means. But
I will say Connor Riley was largely involved in the planning with Colin Klein.
Okay.
He's a run game coordinator, obviously, the past couple seasons as well. He's had that title. Excuse me. I think he has been very involved, not necessarily with the play calling, but in working things out with Colin Klein the last year to at least have the experience of what it may look like.
The difficult thing to gauge from the fan base's reaction will be from the bowl game specifically. You're going against a top 20 defense in the country. So what does a good offensive performance look like with Avery Johnson at the helm and Connor Riley calling plays? Is it them scoring 24, 28 points against this NC State defense? I don't know. I don't know what I guess we'll just have to see, but I wonder also what Chris Kleiman would deem a success. I mean, you're going up against a really talented defense. We don't know if they're going to have all their dudes. We think Peyton Wilson may not play. There's been reports of that, and Houston Chuck Bednarik, award winner for best defensive player in the country, first team All-American linebacker. But, it's a good unit, and Dave Doran's a good defensive mind.
Yeah, and just the tough conversation that would have to be made if it didn't go well, or you weren't impressed enough to make it oh, you tried, sorry. Try again.
Yeah, and honestly, even with that, I'm that, as much as we're sitting here somewhat casting doubt on the decision, that also doesn't seem really fair to Connor Riley to be hey, it didn't go well, but, it was a bold performance with a roster that's been hit a little bit to the portal, and first actual start at quarterback for Avery Johnson against a very good defense in a bowl game. Yeah, it's just it doesn't feel like a very fair scenario for anybody. And I would point out too that, yes, it did go very well for Colin Klein, but when Colin was doing it, it was against an LSU team in the Texas Bowl that had 35 scholarship players. They had nobody. Now, I know it was worse on offense where they basically didn't have a quarterback, but, the defense, I'm sure, was really depleted too, because they just their whole team was gone by that point. They're just interviewing Brian Kelly at halftime. So it was a much more palatable scenario for Colin Klein to have success. Much more conducive, better word there, much more conducive for Colin Klein to have success in his tryout. But I digress. Make sure that you try out Home Field Apparel, everybody. In fact, no tryout necessary. It's going to be great. The holidays, I think by the time you're listening to this, have already come and gone, but that doesn't mean you can't still surprise somebody with some Home Field Apparel or get it for you. You probably got some Christmas money burning a hole in your pocket, so get to homefieldapparel.com. Check out their 40-plus K-State designs there. It's what you'll see everybody wearing at Bramlage Coliseum, at Bill Snyder Family Stadium next year. You see us wearing it consistently here. So make sure you get there and use the promo code 3MAW23 for 15% off your first order. Maybe that's the trial run. Look, you get 15% off, all right? What more could you possibly ask for? So tell them that 3MAW sent you and get to homefieldapparel.com. You can also check out 100-plus other schools if you have other fans of other squads on there. You want to be like DY and just mix it up a little bit. You can do all that at homefieldapparel.com. We're back with headline number 3 in just a moment.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
So lots to talk about Connor Riley and Avery Johnson, but also, you have some hits, particularly on the defensive side of the ball in the transfer portal, that could give guys an opportunity to step up. Will we see somebody else new flash? There will be opportunities there. Kobe Savage gone, Nate Matlack gone. I think we definitely like what K-State has done through the transfer portal and a junior college transfer at defensive end next year. In fact, I think they'll be better at defensive end next year. But for right now, there's going to be an opening there. Phillip Brooks, Ben Sinnott not going to play, so can a Trey Spivey make an impact? Garrett Oakley should have a chance to do more. And maybe we even get a scenario, hopefully it's a positive one, where we get a chance to look at Jacob Knuth. So lots of opportunity out there, DY, for younger guys to step up that haven't had as much of a chance so far this year.
Yeah, and probably some that you left out is, look, they're losing the defensive ends, but I think only Matlack will probably miss the game. So you'll probably still have Duke and Mott and Stufflebean, you would believe, to face NC State. But that still probably gives you one or two guys that can probably also make an impact here. In that vein, you're thinking Chidi Obiizer, Jordan Allen, maybe, even though he hasn't played this year, are potential guys. And, no Kobe Savage. I don't know how well the guys are cross-trained, but maybe that means more Colby McAllister, who's a redshirt freshman. Does Jack Fabris kind of get in there? Obviously, he didn't play after the first 4 games just so he could maintain a redshirt. And you can play in a bowl game. It doesn't go against your eligibility. So Wesley Fair, maybe, those are guys just maybe take into consideration. To be honest, at safety, though, you obviously are going to bring back Marquis Siegel, BJ Ping, who are 2 starters. Colby McAllister's played a lot of snaps. It'll be interesting since they're still in the roster. And let's put it this way. The guys that are still in the roster are the guys that they wanted still in the roster. If they were, I think, effective in encouraging those to leave that they no longer desired to be on the roster. So Kendra Steiger and Daniel Copps are still here. So we would think that they still think that there's promising futures for those two. They're older guys at this point. So how quickly maybe this is the launching point for one or both of those guys as well in the secondary.
We'll probably see Justice James some more in this game at corner, junior college corner, who got some snaps this year. We know they like him. He'll be back next year as well, in all likelihood. Also came from Tyler Junior College, along with Kobe Savage and some of those other guys they brought in. We'll give you a look at who could potentially be your third corner next year, because Keenan Garber and Jacob Parrish will be penciled in probably as the starters, with Will Lead departing and heading to Texas A&M. So see him. Maybe Kenigel Thomas get some snaps in this game, true freshman corner who burned his red shirt this year, playing special teams primarily for Kansas State, a few defensive snaps. I don't know. I doubt we see him in this game, but Donovan McIntosh, a big corner who kind of, matches the prototype of a Will Lee, a bigger corner that I'm excited about moving forward into the future. So, I think there's certainly some young guys that you could see, a Wesley Fair, a Jack Fabris, like DY mentioned. And, you look at linebacker, Austin Romaine, with more bowl prep and practices, at middle linebacker. Do they go with him? Do they go with, Bo Palmer, who they went with a little bit more down the stretch at middle linebacker? Hey, you don't have Jake Clifton. You don't have Asen Newsome, obviously. There's a lot of guys I'm looking forward to seeing. And Chidi Obiizer, I'd love to see some more snaps for him in this game with Nate Matlack moving on, or Jordan Allen, because we know those are 2 guys they're going to count on next year a decent amount. And on the offensive side of the football, you guys already hit it. Trey Spivey, love to see what he could do with some more snaps. We know Avery Johnson has connection with him and Jace Brown. And I want to see Joe Jackson at running back, because Joe Jackson is a guy that they may be relying on heavily next year. As of now, he's probably your number 2 running back, unless K-State gets somebody in the portals that we don't know of currently. It certainly could happen. But we know they like Joe Jackson, and he's going to be counted on next year as that number 2 back, because the other 2 guys that are going to be on the roster are going to be true freshmen at running back.
I'm really glad you brought Joe Jackson up, because early on in the year, I got to be honest, very limited sample size, and it's unfair of me to judge him, but I didn't see much juice there in the couple carries that he got in the non-con. But that's exactly why this is important. They clearly like him. Their actions indicate they like him. What they've said indicates that they like him. So now, hey, show me, Joe Jackson. Go show me what you got. Because right now I'm still sitting here like, I'd kind of prefer a running back transfer to be thrown into the mix there. But hopefully I'm wrong, and Joe Jackson has some juice to show off.
And also what I said about Kendra Steiger and Daniel Copps being 2 other players that they kept around. So you would think that they believe that they can count on those guys next year. The same would apply to Tyler Nalone, who was the corner transfer they took last year from SEMO that didn't really factor in at all this year, but he had a redshirt available, so he was able to redshirt. Maybe, with the quarterback situation being what it is for the bowl game, maybe he's another one, because, the way I look at it, it's nice to get all these young players some snaps, and I get it. They're the bright new shiny toy that everyone wants to see. But if you're going to keep around these older players and not essentially process them out, then they have to be of value to you moving forward. And that would qualify for a guy like Tyler Nalome, Daniel Copps, and even McKendry Steiger.
Well, look, I don't care who it is, man. Somebody step up and give me optimism about next year. I mean, obviously Will Lee was a talented guy that you lost. Again, I think we've reiterated many times, they did not fight to keep him. And anybody who watched the Iowa State game probably has some idea why. That's one thing. We won't have to watch a Super Mario Kart, mushroom shoot an NC State running back forward 20 yards who's streaking down the field. So at least there's that. But yeah, I don't care if it's an old guy or a young guy, like somebody that injects confidence in me that they're going to be okay. And generally, like in the secondary, I have a lot of trust with them in the secondary. So I don't know that I place that at the top of my list of concerns for next year.
And although that wouldn't be for the bowl game, I do like the pickup they got from Jordan Riley, a safety from Ball State.
And let's be honest here. I mean, Keenan Garber was starting to get an increase in snap counts and starting some over Willie toward the end of the year. I mean, Keenan Garber was playing over Willie. Willie got benched for Garber multiple times in the back half of the season as well. They really like Garber, having him back, going into another year with reps at corner, and then, Jacob Parrish next year. I don't worry too much about corner. But I think they have some young guys in the fold that they feel good about too. But yeah, to me, it's also like, you look at the offensive side of the football, we touched on Joe Jackson. Can he be like what DJ Giddens was, and Deuce Vaughn's last year at Kansas State? Can he be the guy that rushes for 500, 600 yards next season for Kansas State while DJ Giddens is that workhorse at running back? And then we're going to need to see a lot from the wide receivers. We know Jace Brown's got it, but can Trey Spivey be a guy with more time now because he didn't arrive for spring ball? Now he's had more time in the system, more bowl practices and reps because they're down some guys at wide receiver, and we need to see something because right now, as you look ahead to next year, the only guys that I could say right now with confidence that I trust or have proven themselves, and albeit Keegan Johnson's been so injury prone that you get nervous about that too. But it's Keegan Johnson, Jace Brown, then potentially Trey Spivey, and who else am I missing? I'm missing one guy.
Jake, to a lesser extent, Jaden
Jackson. Yeah,
he was productive, especially early on in the year. With touchdowns. I think he had the first touchdown each of the non-conference games, if I remember correctly, or at least two of them. So, and to be honest, something that's overlooked, and I know we're really extending this bullet point, but a second tight end, like, is there really someone that you're going to be able to count on behind Garrett Oakley? They have four other ones, just none of them have really produced.
Yeah, and I was going to throw into the mix, his name has come up a couple of times, but Keegan Johnson, like, they're going to be pursuing, and again, maybe by the time this airs, they will have more going on at portal wide receiver. We'll have a little bit more intel at what's happening there. They're probably going to be bringing guys in, but also like they need like, and I'm getting sucked back into me from like October is sitting here like, don't do it, John. Like, don't do it. Don't say it. Don't get sucked into the Keegan Johnson hype again. But I'm going to say it, man. I mean, he still has the skill set to be like a number one guy, and a lot of the word throughout the season was that he was having like some lingering injury issues or whatever. Well, you've had a month off now. Like, you'll have plenty of time to get rested. He should be energized. It would be nice to see a confidence-inducing performance out of Keegan Johnson here in this game.
Yeah, and as they build chemistry with Avery Johnson moving forward, this wide receiver core, and to DY's point on the tight end front, we know Garrett Oakley is going to be a really good player. I'll tell you a guy that I loved in last year's class that is redshirting this year is Andrew Metzger, tight end out of Colorado. Would love to see him maybe get a few snaps as well. Will Swanson obviously still around. DY, is Swanson back next year? He's got another year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's more of a blocking tight end, but has caught a few balls this year. Andrew Metzger, Will Ancio, two freshman tight ends, two true freshman tight ends, that potentially have bright futures in Manhattan. Do we see one of them in the bowl? We'll see.
I don't know. If I had to guess, the bowl game will be Oakley, obviously Swanson, and Braden Lofton, because he played some this year, even though sparingly.
They have recruited very well at tight ends, and they're in the mix for some other really high-profile tight ends. Obviously, a guy like Lincoln Cure comes to mind as far as that goes. So, I feel pretty good about the long-term future at tight end there. But all right, that was a lot on K-State. They are going to be going up against an NC State team that has a really stout defense. Dave Doran has done a really good job there. Honestly, to me, a surprisingly good job when you look at what they've done over the last 5 years. It's better. It's pretty similar to what K-State has done. They're just sneaky and kind of quiet because, look, ACC football, I'll be honest, is pretty boring to me. I don't pay a ton of attention to it outside of the very top, which has been Clemson in essence, with Florida State now emerging too. What do we need to know, Cole? What do we need to know about good old NC State? You're actually wearing NC State colors today, so I'm a little worried about this.
Can I mention something?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're actually playing for something really major for them, for what they consider themselves. NC State has only won 10 games once in the program history, and they can win their 10th game by beating K-State.
Shades of Iowa State, huh?
You know what? That's actually a really good call out, DY, because do you recall
2002?
And do you recall how upset Dave Doran was about the Holiday Bowl a couple of years ago when UCLA pulled out and did the COVID stunt? I mean, I shouldn't say stunt, but UCLA pulled out of the Holiday Bowl game against NC State in 2021 at the last minute. The game was set to be played that night, and 5 hours before kick, it got canceled because UCLA didn't have enough players. They said Dave Doran was really upset because he really wanted to get that 10th win. They were 9-3 going into that game, and he talked about how important 10 wins was to that program and how big of an accomplishment it would have been for him and that program. And they didn't get the opportunity to do it.
It was 2002. They actually won 11 games, won 11-3 because they won the Gator Bowl against Notre Dame that year. To be clear, NC State's made 3 bowl games since 2018, if you remove the 21 thing, and they lost all 3, though.
I mean, what was 2002? Phillip Rivers, back when they had Emmett QB. I remember watching that Tangerine Bowl against KU.
Ohio State beat them that year because Ohio State went on to win the national championship that year and beat NC State, who had Phillip Rivers, and beat Texas Tech, who had Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, I just remember one of those seasons, the Tangerine Bowl, and watching that. I mean, that NC State offense was pretty darn good. I mean, to your point,
was the coach.
Yeah. To your point, John, on NC State, similar profile to Kansas State over the last several seasons. They've won 8 or more games in 6 of the last 7 seasons. They've won 9 in 4 of the last 7 seasons. You look at them over the last 3 years, they're 26-11. You look at K-State over the last 3, they're 26-13. So pretty similar profiles over the recent years. And Dave Doran's a really good football coach. He's done a really nice job at North Carolina State. It's a team that started the year 4-3. They've won 5 in a row, so they're hot. They beat 8-4 Clemson. They beat 8-4 North Carolina, 7-5 Miami, 6-6 Virginia Tech during their 5-game winning streak. Down the stretch, they're 35th overall in Brian Freemau's FEI ratings. Offense is more of the weak point for this team. Defense is the strength. Their offense is ranked 77th in the FEI. Their defense is ranked 14th in Brian Freemau's FEI ratings. It's going to be the second best defense K-State has faced, behind only Texas, which is ranked 7th nationally in the FEI. So we can start with the North Carolina offense. That's more of the weak point, as I mentioned. Their other quarterback, MJ Morris, entered the transfer portal. He played in 4 games and then announced mid-season that he was going to enter the portal. He had actually came in place of Brennan Armstrong, a veteran quarterback who's thrown for almost 11,000 yards in his 6-year college football career. Morris entered the portal, so they're kind of down to one guy that they truly trust at quarterback as well. Armstrong actually leads them in rushing with 544 yards on the ground, has over 1,800 rushing yards in his career, averaging 4.3 yards per carry during his career. It's honestly surprising to me because I think of Brennan Armstrong as a drop-back passer, especially when I watched him at Virginia in 2021 when he threw for 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and 4,500 yards through the air, where he also completed 65% of his balls and almost 9 yards per pass that season before he transferred to NC State. Armstrong's thrown for a little more than 1,600 yards this season, completed 62% of his passes, nearly 7 yards per pass attempt. He really struggled in 2022 at Virginia. He threw 7 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, averaged only 6.5 yards per pass. Over the last 2 years, counting this year, he's got 18 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. So you can force him into some mistakes. It's a team that doesn't run the ball well. We talk about the Iowa State game. Iowa State actually is one of the most explosive teams in the country in terms of explosiveness. In that last game, we saw what they did to K-State. North Carolina State, per our guy, KSU_fan, Jimmy, is 109th in offensive explosiveness. And they've also had 3 different games this year where they've rushed for 20 yards or less. No running back on the roster has 300 yards rushing or more on the team. So they struggle to run the football. 1.93 points per drive. That ranks 81st nationally. And we've talked about him before, but Kevin Concepcion, he's a 5'11" freshman receiver. He leads their team with 767 yards and 64 receptions. He's also their second leading rusher with 247 yards on the ground. They only have 3 guys with over 200 yards receiving. Concepcion, he's a really good player, 3 100-yard receiving games this year. Only player in the FBS with 750-plus receiving yards and 250-plus rushing yards on the season, and he's the first FBS player to do that since 2021 and is the ACC Rookie of the Year. So he's that big weapon that they really have. You lock on him, they don't have a lot of other guys that can really kill you. And I mentioned earlier, their FEI rating of 77, according to Brian Freemount, would be the second worst among all K-State opponents this season, only ahead of Baylor. That helpful?
Yeah. That's definitely helpful.
Yeah, 98th at 4.9 yards per play, average 4 yards per carry as a team on the ground, 74th in sack percentage allowed at 6.5%. So there's just not a lot of things that stand out about this NC State offense. But we transition to the defense. This is their calling card.
I've got one thing to throw in. This is fairly off topic, but did you see where Morris was the kid that transferred, right, at quarterback? Did you see where he transferred to?
No. Maryland? Is that it?
Maryland.
He did go to Maryland. Okay.
He was kind of acting like he was. I'd rather be at NC State than I would Maryland. I'll put it that way. I mean, nothing against Mike Locksley.
If you're a quarterback, I wouldn't say so. Mike Locksley's a quarterback guy. Yeah, you'd rather be with the guy known for. I mean, Tua's brother might be a first-round pick. I mean,
I saw he just opted out on the Music City Bowl, man.
Yeah. No, yeah. If I'm a quarterback, I'd rather put myself in a guy that's produced for NFL draft picks than go with a defensive coach that hasn't.
Dude, I mean, Maryland football is about as sexy as a rock. I mean, I know.
Like I know, but guys aren't. NC State has terrible offense. You don't want to be a quarterback in that system with the defensive coach.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I just Maryland is ACC football adjacent,
right? So they're going to
because they're bottom of the Big Ten bullshit. So I don't know. I needed to take that. But let me take that opportunity to shit on Maryland football. Okay,
I just get that. But Maryland actually plays a sexy brand of offensive football. They're just always going to win 5 to 7 games in the Big Ten because they are who they are. But NC State, they're going to win 8 or 9 games. But NC State is basically the Iowa of the ACC.
Yeah, I mean they're better than that offensively.
Yeah, we don't want to make NC State fans too mad at us there. That might be a little harsh.
Wouldn't you agree that's a fair comparison? I mean, their offense, no one's offense is as bad as Iowa's, but that's what they do. And if you're a quarterback, you don't really want to go there.
I mean, there's no doubt they were really.
I'm sticking up for NC State here. I'm saying that quarterback leaving to thumb his nose at NC State to go to Maryland is pretty stupid. So that's my official take. That's my official take on it. NC State fans, I'm here for you.
I'm just trying to look at what NC State was in the FEI last year. They were, NC State last season, they were 96th in the FEI offensively and 13th defensively. So, back-to-back seasons here that they've been really reliant on that defense. They have struggled offensively. I was just looking at 2021. They were 59th offensively, and the defense was 12th, which is a great call out, actually, because, I mean, year in and year out, this North Carolina State defense has been really good. I mean, I just said it, 12th in 2021 in the FEI, 13th last season, and 18th this year.
They're definitely built to kind of win like Iowa, where they'd rather win 17-10 than anything.
Yeah, and I remember watching, talking about Peyton Wilson as maybe the jumping off point here. I remember watching him in 2018, 2019 at North Carolina State. He was a really good player back then as a freshman for him. I think he was an all-league type player back then. Then he suffered a season-ending knee injury at one point. But as I mentioned, he's the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He's the National College Football Defensive Player of the Year, winning the Chuck Bednarik Award as well. 138 tackles this last year. He's a 6-year guy. Of the 24 defenders who played at least 75 snaps as a pass rusher, at 250 in coverage this season, Wilson had the best tackle rate, tied for 4th in sacks, boasts the most run stuffs, which is tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage, the most TFLs, tied for the most takeaways, etc. He's one hell of a player. Been one of 3 players since 2018 with 100 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 3 interceptions, etc. You can go down his resume. He's terrific. Now, it's been reported by multiple people that he is unlikely to play in the bowl game. He's going to be a draft pick this upcoming year, but he's been playing it kind of coy. We haven't heard anything definitive, right, DY, on his status?
Yeah, it's kind of going back and forth, so we don't necessarily know. It sounds like probably not going to play, but I don't know if we can 100% say that with conviction at this point because of how coy it has been. I did bring up NC State and Maryland offensive stuff just to kind of yank at that chain for Kurtz. So Maryland threw the ball over 100 times more than NC State this year. They completed 68% of their passes. NC State completed 59. Maryland threw for 3,500 yards this year. NC State threw for 2,300.
And Maryland will perpetually start 4-1 and finish 5-7, and that's
absolutely. But I think a quarterback. Look, you know this better than anyone in this day and age. A kid would rather be featured than go to somewhere and win more games and not be featured. That's where we sit.
You guys have any more Maryland breakdowns for me, or?
I had to prove a point. Sorry.
All right. These damn kids. They won't play for the name on the front of the jersey. They want to play for the name on the back of the jersey.
I cannot wait to watch the Music City Bowl now. Maryland Auburn, and text John and DY about it, about thoughts and it.
Auburn will smash them.
Auburn lost to New Mexico State by 21.
Auburn lost to New Mexico State this year.
Hey, Auburn had, first of all, that's a 10-win team. How dare you? And second of all, Auburn had Alabama beats. Okay, if not for one terrible defensive call, that game was done.
I'm going to put money on Maryland to win, and now I'm invested.
No, I haven't made a bet all year. I'll put money on Maryland to lose. How much can I tease that to where it's like Auburn, minus 75?
Cole is completely baffled by what is going on.
We have lost dozens of listeners over the last 5 minutes.
They like us more when we're off the rails. So we're talking Music City Bowl than the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Yeah. I always like the Music City Bowl. Brett Yormark, if you could get that in the Big 12 rotation, that'd be lovely. All right.
You know where Maryland should be playing? Maryland should be forever doomed to the Liberty Bowl. Maryland should play nowhere except, even if they're not bowl eligible, they should have to go play at the Liberty Bowl every single year at the end of the season. They should have to deal with that.
We're going to need some more conference realignment for that because the ACC, or the Big Ten, does not go to the Liberty Bowl.
All right. North Carolina State defense. 1.63 points per drive allowed, ranking 18th nationally. Troy and Texas ranked 12th and 13th nationally in points per drive. The only 2 defenses better than North Carolina State's defense that K-State will have faced in that category this season. 42nd nationally, allowing 3.9 yards per carry, a 7.6% sack rate that ranks 36th nationally. 19th in pass efficiency defense. Only Iowa State ranked better this season out of K-State's opponents. 30th in the country, allowing 6.7 yards per pass attempt. This is where they're dangerous. They force a lot of turnovers. They force you into mistakes. They're going to apply some pressure on Avery Johnson. It's going to be a real test for him and Connor Riley in his first game as the offensive coordinator. North Carolina State is 6th in the country in interception percentage. They pick off an opponent pass on 4.4% of their plays. They're number 3 in the country with 2.1 takeaways per game. They have forced at least 1 turnover in all 12 of their games this season. In ACC play alone, their last 9 games, they have forced 21 turnovers, which includes 15 interceptions in those 9 games. So a really good defense. They're going to turn you over. Can K-State take care of the football? Obviously, K-State offensively really solid this year with Colin Klein leading him at the helm, 16th overall in ESPN's SP Plus. Offensively, offense ranked 7th. Overall in the SP Plus, K-State was 16th, but the offense ranked 7th in the SP Plus, and they were number 12 in Brian Freemau's FEI ratings, or number 11, actually. I'm sorry. So 3.05 points per drive, number 12 nationally. It's just going to be interesting what this offense looks like with Connor Riley and Avery Johnson, as we teed it up at the beginning. The good news is K-State has their entire offensive line playing in this bowl game, which I think is important, for Avery Johnson's real first true start under center or in shotgun for Kansas State at the quarterback position. I think that'll be comforting for him, as he'll be down a couple weapons in Phillip Brooks and Ben Sinnott.
And by the way, shout out to Cooper Beebe for deciding to play and saying that there was no hesitation at all for him to play in the bowl game. A guy that certainly didn't have to do that, and that will be a big benefit to Avery Johnson. D-Y was smiling too much there. Were you looking up more Maryland offensive stats? You're looking at your computer screen smiling.
If you say Maryland one more time, I'm leaving. I am leaving Fremont.
This wasn't about that. No, I think I was just doing sign day stuff because as I try to multitask here, because Kansas State signed, you're just waiting for one more. But what I wanted to say is, and I'm not calling anyone out for not playing. I get that it's an individual decision. It's cool that Cooper Beebe chose to play. I understand Ben Sinnott not playing. I understand most of them. I guess I would just say I was stunned at Phillip Brooks for not, because he's obviously going to opt out for the bowl game, a sixth-year senior that came back for a COVID year at Kansas State. And I understand him, having the desire or the confidence to believe that he could play at the next level. But you would think that for where he is at in that process, that playing in the bowl game would have at least helped from his standpoint. So that one I just thought was really weird.
Yeah, I mean,
You disagree? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's odd, but I'm not all that upset about it. No knock on Phillip Brooks, but we want to see someone else get an opportunity.
Yeah,
that's going to be part of the future.
Yeah, no, I mean, I respect the decision. It's an individual one. Everyone has to do what's in their best interest or what they think is in their best interest. I guess I just logically have a hard time coming around on that one.
I mean, our guy Seth Porter, he's going to get a shot maybe to play a few more snaps in the slot. He'll probably be the guy on punt return too, right? I mean, because Phillip Brooks was the main guy on punt return. They'll probably have to put him back there. Yeah. I mean, you look at kick return, it was Trayshawn Ward and Phillip Brooks for much of the time, right? And they're both gone.
That's what I was saying. If there was another one, the next one might have been Trayshawn Ward. So Phillip Brooks, someone I would like to see on it, and maybe they're a little bit too lean and you're worried about what might happen. It's a guy like Keenan Garber.
What about Avery Johnson? I kid. That's
or Jacob Parrish.
Well,
yeah.
Fair. Well, Jacob Parrish got hurt on special teams in practice, so I don't know.
Oh yeah, boy, I forgot about that. Yeah, fair enough point on Phillip Brooks. When you don't play in a high-powered offense like Maryland's, you got to take every opportunity that you can to prove yourself, and the bowl game would certainly be.
I've lost my Christmas. I've lost my Christmas spirit with your guys' bullshit today on here. So,
you guys ready for some quick hitters? Maybe we can regain that for you, Cole.
Sure, I'm so excited. You have a Maryland quick hitter question in there?
I'll be sure to insert Maryland into one of my answers.
Okay.
Avery Johnson turnovers in this game, over under 1.5. So not the team, but Avery Johnson turnovers. You just outlined how good NC State is at turning people over. First start for Avery Johnson, new offensive coordinator. Not going to have a guy like Phillip Brooks, not going to have Ben Sinnott. Over under 1.5 Avery Johnson turnovers.
I'll say under because I don't want to be a total negative Nancy at this point. I think you'll probably see a turnover. It's his first career start. He's a true freshman playing against a nasty defense, but to expect at least 2, I hope I don't have to do that.
I'm going to take the under as well. I mean, I did just say North Carolina State's forced a turnover in every game this year. K-State will probably turn the ball over. The odds are of that occurring, but I don't think Avery Johnson specifically will have multiple turnovers.
I agree. I'll take the under. I wanted to see if I could get anybody to bite there. More wins as starter next year. Now, again, we're recording this on December 20th. Everybody seems to say that Will Howard basically has committed to USC. assuming that he's at USC. More wins as a starter next year, Will Howard or Avery Johnson?
That's a interesting one. I will say actually maybe Avery. Because
what's USC's football schedule? Have we seen it with the Big
tough.
Ten?
I'll pull it up for you. It's pretty tough.
I was going to say, they play a tougher schedule. I'm not really totally bullish on what Lincoln Riley has done there in terms of being ready for that. But I'm going to say,
who do you think they open up with, Cole?
LSU in Las Vegas.
That is correct. They've got
I pulled it out.
LSU, Utah State, at Michigan, Wisconsin, at Minnesota, Penn State. Boy, I tell you what, Saturday, October 19th, you don't just roll into College Park and come out of there with a win. They are at Maryland on October 19th. So, I mean, we know that's going to be an L. They host Rutgers. They're at Washington. They've got Nebraska at home. They're at UCLA, and then they've got Notre Dame. So, boy, Notre Dame, at Washington, Penn State, at Michigan, neutral site LSU. That's a pretty tough schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it's their Big Ten schedule, which now consists of Penn State and Michigan, Wisconsin, Washington, because they're moving to the league with them, and then add in non-conference games against Notre Dame and LSU. So, yeah, I think Avery is probably the answer, especially if you think Kansas State can get to 8 wins.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that USC schedule. I think their ceiling is probably going to be right around 8 wins. You know, at best, I think it's probably a push. I would lean toward Avery and Kansas State, though. I like the way K-State's schedule shakes out next year, dependent also upon what they finish out this class with the transfer portal. There's still some key cogs. There's key holes they need to address over the coming weeks, and hopefully they do so. Maybe I'll feel differently about my answer after the bowl game as well, though. We'll see. A lot of things still to be figured out, but I would give a slight lean to Kansas State in that scenario and Avery Johnson. But, man, it's going to be fascinating to see Will Howard with more skill talent and what they have at USC and with Lincoln Riley as his coach. That's going to be really interesting to watch unfold.
I mean, they literally pulled Matt Ince, the North Dakota State head coach, to come be a position coach at USC. Like, no love for the USC rebuilding their defensive staff?
I've never seen Lincoln Riley successfully do it yet, no matter what he's done. I mean, he took a guy at Alex Grinch who was pretty highly regarded, and things massively failed for him too. So I just don't have a ton of faith in Lincoln Riley being able to build a good defense.
All right, you ready for this one? Who is at K-State longer, Avery Johnson or Jerome Tang?
Wow, why would you do that?
Oh.
Why? I can't.
You're an asshole.
Nick, take the question out. Scrap this bullshit. This is terrible.
It's a tough question.
You answer it first then, question master.
Jerome Tang. We're gonna Richard Linton. Jerome Tang will outlast Richard Linton. He'll be around here a long time. Avery Johnson will be here 3 years and be a high draft pick.
Well, with 3 years, which means only 2 more. I will say Jerome Tang because of Gene Taylor.
I will say Jerome Tang too because of Gene. They're really close guys. So, and DY, I saw you write that as well, but this has done nothing but forge that relationship. Like how I used the word forge, Coach Tang, forge that relationship, made it even stronger than it already was through all of this. So yeah, I'll take Jerome Tang, but I think Avery Johnson's going to be here a couple years as well. A couple more years.
What number? Oh, wow. No, you don't think Avery's good enough to just play 2 years as a starter and then
well, this is year one. That would be 3 years, and then he would go pro. Check your math. Yeah. So
wow.
Speaking of math, we're going on 54 minutes. It's past 9 o'clock, and we got another show to record, and I got a press conference at 11.
Oh, we'll get you out of here, DY. Don't worry.
Good Lord. Come on, Peanut Gallery. I'm delivering fire questions here.
Well,
just taking.
We wouldn't be done if it wasn't for the Maryland talk, but okay.
These are knife twisting questions.
Which number winds up being higher? K-State football total wins next season or K-State basketball conference wins this year?
Basketball conference wins. They can get to 9.
Yeah.
I think
We're doing this by the way, again, remember, we're doing this in the aftermath of losing by 17 at home to Nebraska.
16.
Yeah.
16, I'm sorry.
There was also still some really good moments. They also beat Providence, who just shit all over Marquette. So,
yeah. I think they can get to 9.
it's just a volatile team. They're capable of beating anyone, capable of losing everyone. So 500 at best, or 500 at worst, in my opinion.
I'll be optimistic, and I'll say K-State basketball conference wins. Although I don't know if that's optimistic, because then that makes it seem like I don't think K-State football can get to 9 wins next year, which I think they can.
They can, but that's not their floor. I think a floor is still 9-9 for the basketball.
I'll go push. I think they're both looking like 9 wins. So
all right.
John bullish on the football team next year.
let's go. Yeah, let's go, baby. I mean, they're upgrading a lot of these positions so far in the portal. We'll be all right.
All right.
Who lands a Power 5 head coaching job first, Colin Klein or Andy Kotelnicki?
Colin Klein.
I
I think it's easier to do as an SEC offense coordinator if you're having a lot of success.
Yeah, that's great.
I would say Colin Klein just because, like, Penn State, you guys know my thoughts on Penn State. I hate them probably more than Maryland. So I think Andy Kotelnicki might actually be the better offensive mind, but I think Colin Klein's in a better position to succeed.
I mean, you say that, but Joe Moorhead got a head coaching job by being the Penn State OC too. So
I don't know. I think Drew Aller kind of sucks.
I'll say Andy Kotelnicki, because if he can transform Drew Allard into a quality quarterback, then I think that'll get him hired somewhere.
All right, finally, Cole is dressed basically as Santa today. So what is Cole bringing Richard Linton for Christmas?
DY, that's you. What do you think?
Cole.
I'm going to do a hell of a lot more than that. I mean, actually, that could be that could be construed as some sort of threat. Let me manage on what I just said. I'll probably send him a 3-maw gift basket. You know, what would a 3-maw gift basket include for President Linton? You know, a former guest on 3-maw.
You tell me. This is all you. I'm not stepping into this one. This is yours.
We got these 3-maw shirts thanks to Sandlot Goods that we could send him.
Is he really the brand? Is he really the brand ambassador that we want?
No, he's not. We could send him a KCSN koozie here, brought to you by Sandlot Goods as well. But maybe we should just go with Cole. I don't know. I think
Cole. I would actually take your strategy and flip it. I think we should send him like some Ain't No Seats gear. You know, seems like the guy is more of a Kansas fan than a K-State fan. You know, with the way he's treated the program. So send him some Ain't No Seats gear and get him on the Kansas.
I'm gonna sit. I know what was.
Get him some Memphis Tigers.
Damn it, DY. That's what I was gonna say. I'm gonna send him a bunch of Memphis gear. I'm gonna send him a Naquan Tomlin K-State jersey.
Give him a Tomlin jersey. Send his ass a Tomlin jersey.
Yeah.
K-State in a Memphis one.
Yeah, I'll send him that. Maybe I'll send him something. Well, I don't know. I'll think about that, and we'll see if we can get. It'll be a little late because I haven't considered it yet, but we'll get President Linton some sort of gift, and hope he's doing well. So I'll
just for good measure, I'll throw in a receipt from a Western Union transaction at Dillon's. I'll top it all off with that, and that's how we'll do it.
Probably going to be the next thing he's after. Yeah,
I'm just going to take this opportunity really quick to say that Clemson hit for me on the final week of the regular season, which put me out of reach for everybody in the lead pipe lock of the week. So I win the title at 6-5. Did not even have to ask you guys for your final selections because it means that I won.
But the bowl picks are worth 3 points.
No, they're not. I even gave you a chance at one point during the year. There was one game where I said you could get 3 points for getting it correct, and that didn't hit for you. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
Predictions. Cole, what do you got?
I'm going to take K-State. K-State FPI, actually. ESPN's FPI has K-State has a 75% chance to win. Now, of course, that doesn't count in opt-outs and transfers, et cetera, for the bowl game. K-State currently right around 2.5, 3-point favorites. That line kind of obviously a shift. We're recording this a little early, but I'll take K-State to win this game 27-24.
NC State has a pretty nasty defense. I think he probably, even without Peyton Wilson, you got a first game offense coordinator on the other side, or first time starting quarterback on the other side. A lot of other young players playing. NC State's been hit by the transfer portal too, but I don't think as many of the regular contributors. They don't have a great offense, but I think their defense can do enough, and NC State wins 23-20.
What? I've got NC State too. I've got NC State 27-23.
By the way, the only time that Chris Kleiman's won a bowl game was against the very depleted LSU team, right?
Wow. You know what I'll send you guys for Christmas? Grinch costumes. Shame on you. Shame on both of you. Why don't you just go move to Raleigh with your Wolfpack families? You know,
we wouldn't be the first Kansas guy to do it. Dave Dorn.
Well, you know,
what do you think? What do you think? Speaking of all this, everything we've just been talking about, what colors do you think Richard Linton is going to be wearing on the 29th?
Yeah, coming from the Wolfpack family, probably has a lot of great relationships there, I'm sure.
Any Maryland Auburn picks for the Music City Bowl? I got the Terps.
And I'll take Maryland just to aggravate John. So
I don't even care anymore. I love that you got to the point where we're going into the relationships and had at NC State.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyways,
hail to the chief.
Go Cats.
Go Commander-in-Chief. Yeah.
Hey, remember when he had me do the cat signal, and I had to do it on the air with him? It's better than the one I did with Uso. It was like this. So
yeah, it still needs a little bit of work, though, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
We all need a little bit of work. Let's be honest. We all need a little bit of work, but our friends at Home Field Apparel do not. Our friends at Holiday Distillery do not. Nick Springer does not behind the scenes. It's us three, Derek Young, Cole Manbeck, John Kurtz, that need all the work. So please send your thoughts and prayers to all of us. Thank you for listening once again. Appreciate the help of all of our sponsors. We will talk to you soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to another edition of 3 Mile.